comments on the questions that were posed. I just want to go over a couple things that were mentioned tonight. The 21st century skills that seem to be a big focus. Unfortunately, that's a debatable subject too. What I have found as a researcher, because I do research for Cornerstone Action, is that our students are lacking basic academic knowledge. And so what I'm hearing from teachers and what you will, if you do any research, what you see is you see a shift in focus away from academic knowledge to these workforce skills, 21st century skills, scans, competencies, outcome-based. They're all pretty much the same. They might get changed a little bit, but that's the focus. We have a 65% remediation rate in the state. According to the National Telegraph, that means kids graduating from high school are going into remedial classes. That's an illiteracy problem. Illiteracy, not workforce skills, illiteracy. How do you measure non-academic workforce skills? Objective or subjectively? We had a presentation from students that were going to be engaged in kind of a political activity in their classroom. We have a serious problem. If you look at the NAEP on U.S. civics and history, we have about a 17% proficiency rate in high school students. It's a little bit better in 8th grade, but not much. Okay, so what they're lacking is literacy in civics and U.S. history, and we're going to turn them into political activists, according to what I saw tonight. And just to give you an example, I have a daughter in college, just started. She took a political class. And sure enough, none of the students know who the vice president is, but they can sure argue a political argument, as we saw in the video. So we need to rethink if these are the skills we want these students to possess, or do we want them to possess knowledge? If you go to and you do a Google search of Kenny Hignite, the 1954 8th grade civics test, could you pass? This is 8th graders back in 1954 that were asked questions about knowledge, academic knowledge on civics and history. That's what needs to be the focus. Clearly tonight we saw that that's not going to be the focus with Common Core. Mathematical understanding, real-world problems. We're going to focus on real world. Well, I would suggest looking at the Ohio State study that you can find in the New York Times from years ago that suggests math teachers scrap the balls and slices. We're going to move away from basic math skills, knowledge, to real-world problems. You better look at that. I'm a math tutor, and you better look at what that's going to cause you. You mentioned struggle. You like the students to struggle. Let me tell you something. As a math tutor, it's one of the worst things you can do to a student, because I get the students that come to me and say, I feel dumb, I feel stupid because I don't get this, because you're requiring them to struggle with something instead of instructing them, direct instruction on math skills. You're using constructivism approaches where they construct the knowledge, where they inquire into mathematics. And let me tell you something, it is a gold mine for math tutors because we're the ones who benefit from it. And to follow up on the competencies, and I'm just about done. I would suggest that you look further into this. And a good article to read is The New Definition of Standards in American Education. It's from April 4th, 2004 by Virginia Miller. And she talks about the scans, and they are the workforce skills that we are going to be focusing on with competencies and Common Core, both. And this has been tried and tried and tried. And this has been thrown out of other states because it shifts focus away from academic knowledge to these skills. We were presented with skills. Nobody asked what those skills are. You need to identify what skills you're talking about and talk to teachers. Are you having to shift? Well, if the teachers will tell you, because I hear from many of them that will not speak up because they fear what's going to happen to them from administrators. But this has happened years ago. And what they found with this workforce development is replacing academic essentials. And New Hampshire is listed in this article. And they found that scans have never been validated. The Office of Management and Budget defunded it at one point, and the project died. And there is no information that showed the skills led to high-performance jobs. So what we are seeing is a fundamental shift in public education. This is the redesigning of schools. President Obama addressed this in one of his addresses to the nation. He said, we're redesigning public education. You better know what that means, because you're shifting from a public school that's supposed to focus on academics. Back years ago, if you read Edie Hirsch's book, The Schools We Need and Why We Don't Have Them, he talks about how schools back in the 50s aligned to the college entrance, what was accepted back then. And that meant that your kids graduated literate from high school. They could go to a job, and the employers weren't complaining because they were literate. They're complaining because right now they don't have the skills, but you acquire skills, but the knowledge, it is the academic knowledge that is missing. And this is not focusing on it. And I think in that presentation it was obvious. It was obvious to somebody like me. So I'm just encouraging you to do more research. Do more research. This is a fundamental shift. Thank you. I appreciate it.